Tree project was conceived at a forest festival on the banks of the Huon River, and across from the forest festival was a clear fell that they were still operating on, and every morning we'd wake up and the machinery would be operating across from the forest festivals.
She asked me would I cut up a little tree for her. That's getting back up possibly nearly 2 years ago, or in the vicinity of 2 years ago. And I said, yeah, that'd be no problem. When she told me the size of the tree she was going to bring, I said, yeah, no problem at all. So 12 months had elapsed. I was here one Saturday afternoon and I had this big truck went down the road here with a load on it. So I knew the bloke and he came back and he said, hey, so I've got a load of logs for you. I said, no, you haven't got any logs for me. Yes, he said, I have. I said, where'd they come from? He said, the Forestry Commission. No, it wouldn't be for me. Yes, he said, anyway, when he told me, I said, yeah, you better put them up there. But he said, you haven't seen the funny part yet. He said, I've got to bring the stump and all yet.
Yes, so the issue there really and the control measure is drive according to the road conditions, suggested speed limit 25 kilometres an hour, and forestry TAS slash the edges of the road, which you can see that we've done. And we only move within that at the operator's instruction. So Ken will say come in. So basically we'll be standing 2 tree lengths away from everything that he basically does. Unless he instructs us that it's okay to move within that.
Your hand signals for that then, Ken?
Yeah, like
gloves.
At the festival, it was about looking at what we could do in the future of trying to stop the destruction of the forest, and we had a circle about it and talked about trying to focus our energy on positive statements about what we could do with the forest, and the One Tree project came up as an option, and as soon as somebody mentioned it, that we all just went, yeah, that's exactly what we need to do.
I've been milling for a long, long time, and there's a lot of pieces there that wouldn't have made the grade if it had been my logs anyway.
This is what we're going to do. We want to take a chip tree out of the forest and make lots of marvellous things at it, but so that we can do a contrast between what's happening with the forest and what could be happening with the forest.
Actually, that particular tree, you would have only got about 2 tonne out of that for pulpwood because the other wasn't good enough. 2 tonne would have been the maximum that you would have got out of that particular tree.
Well, the one tree when it came down was 35 metres tall. It had approximately 5.7 tonnes of wood chips in it, in a big section, because the crown of the tree and the branches of the tree are never taken to the wood chipper. It's just the straight spar of the tree. So our estimates are that the wood chip value of the tree is between $350 and $450. I mean, what greatly concerns us with the current industry at the moment is that 90% of the trees that are being cut out of the forest are actually going straight to the wood chipper. So that when you go and sit in a clear fell operation that's been finished, not only do you know that 90% of the trees that were standing there have just gone straight to the wood chipper, but often you stand on a clear fell and there'll be 12 foot of timber left on the clear fell. There'll be, you know, rare species trees that have just been left there and probably been run over by a big excavator or something and left there to do nothing except for provide fuel for the burn at the end of the clear fell process.
Oh, I suppose they would have pushed the windrows out the bush and burn them. That's what they normally do. They burn better stuff out in the bush than that anyway.
I felt like taking the idea of the bag of chips that you inevitably see walking around parks squashed into the pavement where someone's half eaten it, and you know, it's a bit of a takeaway, throwaway symbol. In a way, I'm making these wood chips out of the branches to symbolise what the wood chipping industry in Tasmania was originally started for, as a part of the sawmilling industry. They chose to utilise the branches by pulping them and making them into wood chips, and so that's how wood chipping was introduced to our Tasmanian forestry practice. And to me it's been abused, and yeah, I'm looking forward to making an alternative statement through using these wood chips.
I think everybody in Tasmania sees, you know, a lug truck passing by them every 10 minutes, and I mean, we know from the Tasmania Together forums that, you know, at least 75% of people in Tasmania don't like the rate of wood chipping that's happening. I perceive it as a problem for a couple of reasons. One, because I think it's a really short-term view, and that the forest is just disappearing at a rate that is in no way sustainable. I mean, the rate of wood chipping in Tasmania at the moment means that there would have been the equivalent of over 900,000 trees, the size of this tree that's in the exhibition. And that, I mean, it's 5.2 million tonnes of wood chips were exported from Tasmania last year. And I mean, that just creates the hugest wood pile that you can imagine. We did our calculations and worked out that the wood chip pile would be as round as the MCG and as high as Mount Wellington, of 5.2 million tonnes of wood chips. I guess that's what the One Tree vision is about thinking a little bit more carefully about what we do with our natural resources. We know that the planet's in a really dire position and that we need to start being a little bit more careful and thoughtful and about what we're doing. And so the One Tree project is a practical example of adding care and thought to the process of using a natural resource.
We cut apple cases here for George Jenkins for at least 25 years, fruit cases. Well then when the fruit cases, the cartons come in and the fruit cases chucked it in, we wasn't allowed to cut this and we wasn't allowed to cut that and we wasn't allowed to do this and wasn't allowed to do that. Well, it started sneaking back all the time. Well, it's gradually wound back and back and back and back till it's more or less nothing, you know. But I will say this, whether the forestry like it or whether the government like it. Well, the government in the day, they probably wouldn't understand, but we lost a lot of employment and a lot of good things through the wood chipping. There's no risk about that. It'll never ever come back. We had 17 little mills in here, and one mill up here used to employ probably 15 people. But the thing about it wasn't just us. We'd take the cases down the road here and there'd be 3 or 4 stacking them and there'd be 3 or 4 planing them and there'd be 2 or 3 making them up. It created, one apple case created a lot of work. A lot of work. The sawmilling industry, the way that we did it and the way the smaller ones are doing is finished. There's within the next 5 or 6 years, there won't be too many sawmills left. No risk about that.
By having sustainable timber coming out of that forest, it means that we get to reach all the goals, which is to not destroy the environment and to not destroy the jobs in the industry.
It's really a comment on the Japanese link between where the wood chips go and what they're used for, and about life cycles and regeneration and that kind of thing. The pots are made out of paper pulp, recycled paper pulp, mostly really newsprint and quite low grade stuff with some of the sawdust from the tree in it.
I'd really like to see Forestry Tasmania utilising the resources and putting true value on their forests. And I've coined a little word, I think it's called ecocide. That seems to be the way forestry is working. And I'm into eco-value, using the ecology sensibly and sustainably. What you see here is a paper and sawdust pulped dome that is lined with small mirrors, and with it I hope to capture the sun's rays, be able to boil water and cook other things with it. It's going to have a base made of 6x1 planks from the One Tree and a method of like trivet-like thing that lifts up and down to the focus point of the parabola.
The piece I've chosen to make for this project is a dining table. It's constructed from 4 planks which were cut from 2 slabs bark to bark near the base of the tree. The One Tree project seems to me to be the kind of thing that is straight down the middle between seemingly irreconcilable opposites. On the one hand, hardcore protest, which upsets a lot of people, and on the other hand, hardcore destruction of forest, which also upsets a lot of people.
So I've made a guitar, and hopefully it does the tree some kind of honour and respect of what is actually given to us. And to show that we don't have to bring the trees to the lowest common denominator, i.e. wood chips, to get value from them. That if we wanted to, we can actually create some very precious things from those trees, which reflects what the trees are, which is a very precious life form, which contribute to us in many ways, not just the timber resource, but the quality of the environment, the other creatures that live amongst those trees. There's many, many layers to trees rather than just a resource. The life of the tree has a certain special quality. Music is another thing which I liken to that. It's intangible. It doesn't actually have something which you can measure, and perhaps a musical instrument can reflect some of that life force that's in the tree, the vibrations of music and the vibrations of the life of that tree, which we're working with in this project.
Because, One Tree was also always about having the situation where jobs and the environment get to coexist. And so the dream of creating a One Tree forest, which is a forest that would be logged sustainably and under the guidelines of the Forest Stewardship Council, and therefore any timber that came out of our forest would be certified. And with the certification means that it opens up a whole new market for us, and that with the research that we did, the certification means that we can ask for a lot more money for each piece of timber that comes out of the tree. So it was a way for us to value add to a forest, not just to one tree.
you can't grow wild things in captivity, mate. All the trees that's around here now, where we've been through years and years ago and cleared it and put paddocks in, there's not a decent bloody tree amongst them. They're all limbs. You've got to get out in the forest and they've got to be let grow. There's no risk about that. And once they're gone, they'll never grow trees there again the same.
At first I wasn't really aware of what was going on, but I was talking to some of my patients who work in the forest industry, and they were very concerned about the destruction that's going on in the forest, how much wood is not being taken out or used properly. And I started to get a bit more involved from there. Then a patient took me out to a forest area just to show me what he was concerned about, and this is what he showed me. Areas like this of complete devastation. Trees were just piled up as far as the eye could see. Looked like a bomb had been dropped. And what also concerned us was that a lot of this wood was obviously not going to be used for anything except to burn.
My name's Rob Fairley. Came to Tasmania 6 years ago. Before that I lived in Brisbane and went to university and studied environmental science and business. And with those backgrounds came to Tasmania and went walking in the forest and was surprised, shocked, alarmed about what I saw, which was basically massive broad-scale clear felling of old-growth forests at the rate of 14 football fields a day. So it's over 14,000 hectares of public land gets cleared every year in Tasmania. Within 2 weeks, this next 100-hectare coupe, which they have planned, will be gone. 90% of it will be turned into paper, exported to Japan, turned into paper, and in return for that, Tasmania, the Tasmanian government gets between $7 to $9 a tonne for the timber or the wood chips that they export to Japan. The biggest wood chip mill in Tasmania employs 9 people, works 24 hours a day, and it consumes over 2 million tonnes of wood chips a year.
One of our members recently travelled to the Weld Valley, which is the next area that's going to be clear-felled, and he rode in there on his mountain bike because it was locked to the public. And here we came across areas like this. Despite forestry claims that they never clear up to stream boundaries, well, we've found that many times this is not the case, and they have. And we've done audits in other areas of the state where there's been multiple breaches of the Forest Practices Code, and nothing's been done about it. We're concerned because the people who arbitrate these decisions, who sit on the Forest Practices Code, are actually the same people who work in the forest industry and have no real motivation to change.
So once they actually log an area like this, the machines drive all over it, they churn up the soil. Then they actually, once they've taken the trees away, they drop fire bombs, little napalm-like incendiaries upon and burn the whole coop. So then they burn the dried out leaf litter and the mulch, and they leave the topsoil exposed for at least 5 or 6 years, the time it takes for the young eucalypt trees to actually grow back. So over that period of 5 or 6 years, you've got a tremendous amount of soil erosion that's happened every winter when the area gets very wet. The landscape can no longer hold the water capacity because there's no mulch or leaf litter. So it starts to move the soil down towards the rivers, and basically it ends up in the Weld River, ends up in the Huon River, ends up going out to the ocean. The productive life support capacity of the soil, where all the nutrients are held, is basically just being moved down the slopes. And from my readings of the science, the forestry's own scientists have put a figure on between 2 and 4 tonnes per hectare per year of soil erosion. So each hectare, there's 2 to 4 tonnes of soil that's actually being moved further and further down the slope towards the rivers, and once it ends up in the rivers, it ends up in the rivers and the oceans and clogs up the rivers, ends up in the oceans, and then it's no use for the plants and the animals, which includes us.
Leatherwood's the only producing tree that we have in Tasmania that produces honey regularly every year. Sometimes not as good as others, but definitely regular, and it's the backbone of the beekeeping industry in Tasmania. And since the RFA, they're saying they're leaving nectar resources, but they're totally inadequate. They're not even going to, in some years, even support our bees, let alone the beekeeping industry. So we're in a pretty, not only the beekeepers, but all the agriculture and horticultural industries that rely on the beekeeping industry, it's a shaky business. They won't listen to the grassroots of the beekeepers. They're only listening to those very few that is telling them what they want to know, not what they should know. We're at our peak. From now on, there's only one way, and that's downhill if they continue with their clear felling and burning. I don't know how many square metres it is, but there's not one rainforest species in it. Not one. Can't see one.
A lot of people believe that if you clear fell a forest and regenerate it and resow it from the air, that you're replacing the old forest with the same forest, and that just isn't true. A mature old-growth forest takes about 500 years to reproduce itself, you know, starting from scratch, if you like. That's not going to happen. It's good for a community to feel that it does have a relationship with the resources and the ecosystem in which it lives and of which it's a part, which is a source of pride to it. And so it becomes knowledgeable about the resources that it's got. The people who live near a forest are the people who are best able to use it to its best advantage, both for themselves and for future generations. My wife and I founded the boat school, the wooden boat school in Franklin, way back in 1991. There are very few places in the world where you can get all the materials you need to build the highest quality yacht you could build anywhere, and you can get all the materials you want from a radius of about 20 kilometres. It's a pretty special opportunity to be doing that in this part of the world. It takes about 7,000 person hours to build a 30-foot yacht, and the major cost, in fact, is the cost of the labour rather than the materials. But it's producing from a very small amount of timber, say 3 cubic metres of celery top pine, for example, for the planking. You're producing a vessel worth about $180,000. We're looking down the barrel, if you like, at having no celery top pine of boat building quality left in the Huon Valley in a decade. What we are doing, I think, is giving up the opportunities which are unique to Tasmania to capitalise on the timbers which only grow here and don't grow anywhere else in the world, like celery top and myrtle, which are the most valuable timbers we've got.
Weld Valley is in southern Tasmania, and it's the last pristine valley that exists in the southern forests of Tasmania. Over the next 20 years, Forestry Tasmania has intentions and plans to log this area, to log the bottom third of this valley. So basically this is the last chance that we've got to protect this area and keep it as an untouched area for all future generations, just to know what it's like to have an untouched area. It's an area that's been deemed by scientists worldwide to be of international significance. So conservationists for the last 20 years have been urging the government to place the whole of the Weld Valley in a national park, a protected status. Scientists from the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, to scientists from the Federal Australian Government and scientists from the Tasmanian Parks and Wildlife Service have said that the Weld Valley is worthy of protection. We only have named 30% of the animals that actually exist in a forest like this. The rest of the animals and plants that actually exist here, we haven't even given them a name, little alone know what impact it is by clear felling and burning upon them. So we're just coming in and just wiping out 600 million years of evolution.
Mother Earth, Papa Tuanuku.
The campaign Forest Cycle, it's to educate people about the situation that's happening in Tasmania's forest, where they're doing a lot of logging and plantations on existing prime farmland.
Then we could split up into 2 groups.
We're not saying don't cut trees down, we're simply saying let's get smart about the way we do it.
This is Gypsy. Gypsy Dreamer is her full name, but you could just call her Gypsy if you like.
And she's a troublemaker.
She's rather flamboyant too. She's got her flags and orange thing, and she can't actually speak in words, so she just speaks in sign things.
Ah, we're supposed to be riding, are we?
Don't tell everyone.
And so what we've decided to do, instead of just sort of think about that and not say anything, we decided to actually get on our bicycles, which you saw us wheeling out there, and we're riding from Burnie all the way down to Dover. So who's been to Burnie? Do you know how far away it is? A long way, yeah. Especially when you go all the way over to Devonport and down across to Launceston and all the way over the Northeast Highlands. Then down the east coast, and who knows where Triabunna is? How many kilometres away is that? 9 kilometres. Okay, so we're doing about 900 kilometres, so we're riding about 100 times as far as Triabunna to here.
And so you've got life variation, and that's what we're going to talk about today, biodiversity, life variation.
There's only 100, or maybe even less, I think, approximately about 100 breeding pairs of these left in Tasmania. Only 100, there used to be hundreds, you know.
That's fire.
Is it?
Yeah. We're burning all the forest.
Once we do start talking about issues, it's just so clear that we need to start working together to protect the forests, because you know it's in all of our interests to look after them, because loggers won't have jobs there if we keep logging them like we are. When somebody says, yeah, but looking after the forest is going to cost me my job, well, no, it's not. If we work it properly, if we just selectively log, take out only some of the timber and use it to its highest possible value, so process it until you can make, you know, several $100s per tonne of wood in the form of, you know, high quality craft wood or as timber for our houses, rather than making, you know, like $10 per tonne as wood chips.
The ever-loving nurturer, the mother, the ever-giving nurturer.
I'm sure you were definitely the naked chef for trousers on when you had the cars coming in. Oh, these are the cold ones, though.
Yeah.
Over here for the they're the hot nuts.
Godmothers,
We've got lots of people on the way, and hopefully the campaign gets across to people. At the same time, it's a fun thing to do. Get about, big bikes.
the carriers of life, of knowledge, of thousands of years, of suffering and pain, joy, strength, faith, and hope, and humor. The ever-loving nurturer, the ever-giving nurturer.
Environmentally, we're seeing unprecedented destruction of our forests, basically, and of our earth for that matter.
The ever-loving nurturer, the ever-giving nurturer.
What they do now is essentially remove an entire complex ecosystem, like they clear fell, take out the whole thing, so that something that's taken thousands and thousands of years to form, they just wipe out in one fell swoop, burn the remains, you know, all of the what they call waste, which is actually beautiful nutrient which would go back into the soil. They burn that and then replant, and so even when they replace it with native forest, it's going to take hundreds and hundreds of years to get back to that sort of ecosystem, that sort of complexity. And I mean, in the case where threatened species were there, sometimes they never returned. 90% of what we're taking out of our forests goes into wood chips, which then gets turned into paper and all sorts of packaging products. They're chipping species, rainforest species like myrtle, blackwood, which are absolutely amazing timbers for making furniture or craft wood out of. It's just a crazy mentality. Like, the government are so weak these days. They're basically controlled by these multinational companies, by these huge companies, like through political donations and through fear of changing the status quo.
The prizes for winning the costume competition are very, very small. The prizes for participating are obviously huge. The rewards are huge, and there'll be prizes also potentially randomly distributed. You know,
We've become so confused, we don't understand the purpose of living this life in harmony with nature's loving energy. We drink of your water, we swim in your rivers and seas, lay on your earth, breathe in your air so sweet. Your fire sets us free. From a still lake to a raging ocean, a candle flame to erupting volcanoes. With devotion, I offer this song. With devotion, I offer this soul.